What's going on, everybody? How's it going? This is Waj, and in this video I'm going to be discussing my top 20 reasons of why I think the Samsung Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge is better than the HTC One M9. So if you're wondering what the specific advantages are of the S6 over the M9, this is a perfect video for you. So without any further delays, let's get right into my top 20 reasons. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that both the Samsung Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge is quite a bit lighter and thinner than the M9. The M9 measures about 9.6 millimeters in terms of thickness versus the S6 Edge only measures about 7 millimeters, and the standard S6 even thinner than that. And in terms of weight, the M9 is quite heavy at 157 grams versus the other phones are just around the 130 gram mark. So that's definitely a lot lighter, and you can certainly feel that difference in your hand. Next, even though the HTC One M9 is very comfortable to hold in your hand because it has that curved back, so fantastic for ergonomics, but when you're laying it down on a flat surface, it does wobble around quite a bit, and I do a lot of texting and messaging back and forth when the phone is flat, and that's kind of annoying, versus the Samsung is overall pretty level and definitely doesn't have those kind of issues. Plus, in terms of the button placement, the Samsung is a little bit better thought out, and the buttons themselves feel a lot more tactile because they stick out more, easier to press compared to the more flush mounted buttons we have on the M9. Furthermore, at the back of the GS6, we have Gorilla Glass 4 technology, which is fantastic for durability. I've been using the M9 for a couple of weeks now, and after carrying it in my pocket with my car keys and things like that, it has gotten some minor scuffs, and even though aluminum is very durable and rugged, it is more vulnerable for fine hairline scratches, versus even though the Samsung is a fingerprint magnet because it has that shiny overall surface, which I'm not the biggest fan of, you definitely won't have to worry about getting scratches on the back of that phone. Moving forward, we're going to start talking about the camera advantages on the GS6. Firstly, I want to mention is that it has a fantastic front-facing camera, active HDR mode, and in most lighting circumstances, you're going to get better color rendition. It has a higher megapixel stills capability of 5 megapixels versus 4 megapixels on the M9, and we have quad HD video capabilities. And you can see from this comparison that in certainly high dynamic situations, because it has active HDR mode, you are going to get a better dynamic range on the front-facing side on the Samsung. Next, because the new Samsung has a large aperture of f1.9, it has fantastic low light capabilities and much better low light capabilities in terms of stills and videos compared to the M9. So if you're using it both for photos and videos in indoor conditions, 9 times out of 10, your images are going to be brighter, less noisy, and certainly a lot better to look at. Furthermore, we have optical stabilization on the GS6, which means we have a lens element that moves independently of the camera sensor. So what that means in specific low light conditions, you're going to get sharper and brighter photos, which is going to attribute to even better looking low light shots. And especially for video, you're going to find a huge difference, especially if you're shooting handheld, which you're going to be doing most of the time anyways. And you can see by this side-by-side comparison, it's a night and day difference between shooting handheld on the M9 versus what we're getting on the GS6. Moreover, I found that the camera app on the Samsung is a lot better than what we have on the M9. Not only is it faster and more accurate when it comes to the metering system and getting the right exposure settings and white balance and colors, but it is also faster when it comes to the autofocusing speeds. You can take a snapshot a lot quicker, I found, on the Samsung Galaxy S6 than compared to the M9, which is really critical in capturing that perfect moment. Moving forward, we're going to talk about the displays on these two smartphones. Now, in terms of the screen to body ratio, which is how much screen you have compared to your overall smartphone body size, we have a larger percentage of 71.7 screen to body ratio on the GS6 Edge versus about 68.4% on the M9. So that means we have quite a bit larger display relative to the body size. Beyond that, we have quite a bit higher resolution, as you guys all know, of 2560 by 1440 with an outstanding PPI count of 577. And even though the M9 has a great 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is perfectly fine for most people, you can tell the difference when you're looking at fine photos and text, and just the overall experience of not seeing any pixels is definitely nice to see on the Samsung. Now, apart from the clarity factor, I also think that the color rendition is quite a bit better on the GS6. Not only are the colors more vibrant, but not over vibrant and over exaggerated that we've seen in previous Super AMOLED AMOLED displays. Additionally, in terms of the contrast ratio, because it's a Super AMOLED display, your black levels are pretty much off, so you have infinite dynamic contrast ratio. And in terms of brightness, I did find that the GS6 was quite a bit brighter. I got a rating of about 563 CDM squared versus 508 CDM squares on the M9. So in brightly lit conditions, you're going to find the display on the Samsung is quite a bit brighter, which is certainly handy when you're using it in outdoor sunlit conditions. Moving right along, the new GS6 actually has a much improved fingerprint scanner, which is very easy to use. You can use it to replace your passwords, use it to buy specific things for security authentication and things like that. It's very responsive and quite a bit handy when unlocking your phone. Unfortunately, the M9 does not have any of those features. Additionally, at the back of the S6, we still have that heart rate monitor, so you can use that to measure your pulse and everything like that using the S Health app integrated into the phone. And you can even use it as a button to take selfies, which is quite handy from time to time. Now next I want to talk about some of the special software features we have on the GS6. Firstly, the TouchWiz interface is much improved from previous generation Samsung devices, which is nice to see, very easy to use. It utilizes the material design philosophy of the new Android 5.0 quite well. But we still have all the great features that we've seen in the S5 and the Note 4, like the download booster, which will use your Wi-Fi and LTE speeds to get you faster download speeds. We still have Smart Stay mode, which will monitor whether you're looking at the phone and keep the screen on or off depending upon if you're looking at it or not. There's still all those great gesture features. One of my favorite ones is swiping your palm across the screen to take a snapshot. But probably one of the most handy features I found on the GS6 is if you double tap on the home button, you can open up your camera app no matter what you're doing on the smartphone. Very easy and perfect for capturing images in unexpected moments. Moving forward, we still have that great multi-window multitasking mode on the new GS6 like we've seen in previous generation Samsung phones. And even though there are third-party apps that will allow you to do essentially the same thing on the M9, I think the integration and the way that Samsung has engineered this application, this process really works quite fantastically. I find myself constantly using it if I want to surf the web and watch a YouTube video at the same time. Now, since we have the Edge model of the GS6, there's a couple of interesting things you can do with that Edge feature. Firstly, if the phone is facing down and you get a notification from one of your favorite contacts, you get a color-coded light beam that corresponds to one of your favorite contacts. So just by glancing at that, you kind of know who's contacting you without even touching the phone or picking it up. Furthermore, there's a couple of different applications that are specific to the Edge, so you can use it as a night clock, view your notifications such as missed calls, emails, text messages, Yahoo news feeds, and even look at trends on Twitter. And you can go to the settings menu and actually customize on what you want to see on that Edge display. And I'm sure later on down the road, you're going to have different applications and developers may get behind this Edge so you can do some interesting and actually useful things with it. And even though functionality wise, the Edge might be not a huge deal for many people, but for me personally, I love that aesthetic look of that curved display quite a bit. Now moving right along, the battery life on the Samsung Galaxy S6, even though it's lower in terms of capacity, in most of my tests outperforms the HTC One M9. In terms of real world tests, I'm getting about 3 to 4 hours more juice on my GS6 compared to the M9, which is nice to see. And on a more critical analysis, I did a battery test on Geekbench 3 and found out that the Samsung went over 7 hours versus the M9 just hit around that 3 hour, 30-minute mark. Continuing forth, another battery advantage is that we have wireless charging capabilities on the GS6, both for PMA and Qi wireless charging pads. Additionally, both devices have Quick Charge 2.0 technology, but based on my experience, the charge time from 0 to 100% was only around 68 minutes on the GS6 Edge versus it was around 80 minutes using the quick charger on the M9. Additionally, the Samsung actually comes with the fast charger inside the box versus the M9, you're going to have to buy that as a separate purchase. Now, one of my major concerns on the HTC One M9, especially when using it for a long-term basis, is the overheating issue. I've had quite a bit of problems during my testing, especially during the battery test. It hit over 50 degrees Celsius, and when you're holding the phone in your hand, it was unbearable to hold, not exaggerating at all. Now, that was the early days. They have done some patches and updates. It still gets hot, not quite as hot as when I first encountered the phone, but they still haven't completely solved the issue, versus the Samsung stays cool no matter what you do. So that means that they've definitely engineered their internals a lot better than the M9. I'm not sure if it's a hardware or software issue that we're having, but it's a problem nonetheless. And that brings us to some of the advantages internally on the GS6. The Exynos 7420 chip is in most circumstances faster than the Snapdragon 810 chip that we have on the M9. If you look at the Geekbench results over here, and indeed the Antutu benchmark, we're getting overall better performance on the GS6. And last but probably more importantly, when you're using the phone on a day-to-day basis, because of all those different factors and because Samsung has custom engineered their chip to work really well with the software, the applications load up faster, it boots up quite a bit faster than the M9, and the web browsing speed is slightly faster as well. So really, in most circumstances, I think the Samsung Galaxy S6 is a better overall smartphone than the M9. The M9 has a couple of different advantages that the GS6 does still not have. So if you're interested in that, check out my video where I talk about some of the specific advantages that the M9 has over the GS6. But really, other than that, guys, that's really it. Make sure to leave a comment down below letting me know on what you guys think of these two smartphones. Which one would you go for? And if you haven't seen our main comparison video, definitely check those out, as well as those dedicated videos that we've done comparing these two. But other than that, that's really it. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.